Okay, welcome everybody to this webinar about working with parameter actions. And what I'm going to show you today, this is not going to be a hands-on session, so don't worry about getting your laptops out, or, well, I guess you have your laptops out because you're on the camera, but don't worry about opening up Tableau. I'm going to take you through my framework step by step on how I approach parameter actions, why they're important, some use cases that you can go through them with different industries, and a few other tidbits as well. So if you have any questions throughout the session, feel free to pop them in the chat. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eva to do a little housekeeping for us.
Hi everyone, I'm Eva, and I'm helping out managing the behind the scenes of the webinar. I think I just posted in the chat as well. So the webinar is recorded. You will get the recording as a link in the email afterwards. And now I don't have my notes. Can you open Notion for a second, please?
Sorry to interrupt you, but I believe there's something, still there's some echo from your side.
Yes, my fly.
Oh, wrong workshops.
This is all on the fly. That's all good.
And which one?
Yes, that first one. Thank you. Yeah, so webinar is recorded. Everyone who registered, which is all of you, will get the link, and you're also going to get the slides afterwards. We do have a bonus that Andy will mention later on, and I'm going to post an extra file in the chat. I'm also going to share links wherever relevant, so that you have it nice and easy, but everything you need to know will be in the follow-up email. So if you miss any links in the chat, don't worry about it. In terms of asking questions, please feel free to put them in the chat, but also if you would like to come off mute and ask it live, use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and then I can just call you on at a moment when Andy takes a breath and you can jump in with your question. Feel free to use the reaction button. I see a few people have already done that with the thumbs up. Gives you some nice interaction for Andy as well, to see that people are engaging with the content that he's presenting. And yeah, so react option at the bottom of your screen. Put questions in the chat if you want, or come off mute and ask your question live. And please keep them on topic. We didn't have any issues last time. I don't expect any issues this time. Sometimes in big webinars, some people might come with like super random questions, and we just want to avoid that, given that, you know, everyone's here for this parameter actions topic. So with that, I'll hand over back to Andy.
Thank you.
Have fun.
See, I told you there'd be a problem somewhere along the way. All right, but you can still hear us, so that's the most important thing. Let me go ahead and share my screen and we'll get started. I guess while I'm getting this started, if in the chat, if you could maybe type something in the chat about something you are hoping to get out of this and what you're most excited about. And actually, another good thing, where are you dialing in from? That's always super interesting to see. Especially, I wonder if anybody's from the UK, because it's a bank holiday tomorrow. I had a choice between doing it this weekend or next weekend, but next weekend is Labor Day weekend, and there's way more Americans part of Next-Level Tableau than British, so I opted to support my my fellow Americans. So okay, so let me go ahead and get the crew in Cheshire. Oh, love Cheshire. I didn't know you were there, David. All right, so let me go ahead and share desktop 1 and screen. Okay, and there we go. And if you could give me a thumbs up and let me know that you can see everything, that would be great.
You can see a field.
You can see, oh, you can see a field. Now you can see, oh, that was a sneak peek at something. Okay, so now you should be able to see my screen. Okay, let me just rearrange my screen a bit here so I can see you all a bit better. Okay, so what we're going to go through today, and did anybody attend this last time as well on Friday? I hope you're not here twice. So what I covered on Friday, I'm going to actually skip some of the things that I covered on Friday, because based on some feedback I got from people afterwards, it's probably not necessary to go through. But I'm going to start with giving you an example of how I use parameter actions in my personal life. So there we go. So I need to plan a trip to New York. Who's all been to New York before? Quick hands up if you've been to New York. Eva's been there. Hugh, Enrique, Guy, hopefully a bunch of others as well. Again, if you don't have your camera on, please take yourself off, because it makes the session way better if I can actually see people. Unless you're naked, then leave yourself off. Okay. So I need to plan a trip to New York. And I want to use parameter actions to sort of figure out where I want to stay. But I want to avoid pigeons because I don't like pigeons, and I find them quite mean. So I wanted to figure out, well, where can I stay? And thanks to the city of New York, you can actually download data about pigeon sightings. Did anybody know that? If you go to New York Open Data and you just search pigeons, you can get their pigeons data set. So what happens is they have a service called 311, which is a complaints line, and people call in and complain about pigeons. So they mark every location where a pigeon is. I then also got a list of all the hotel locations and combine those two things together to sort of figure out where I could stay. So let's go ahead and hop over to Tableau. There we go. And so my idea was I want to try to find a hotel that has no pigeons within 250 meters. Okay. Understand the situation here, what we're trying to do. So first off, I'm starting at the borough level because I want to understand kind of which borough do I want to stay in. Of course, it looks like Staten Island has the lowest. There's only been 735 pigeon sightings. Highest in Manhattan and Queens, not particularly surprising. But I don't want to stay in Staten Island because it's just such a pain to get over to the island, to Manhattan. I know I need to either probably be near Central Park or near maybe Lower Manhattan or possibly even Brooklyn so I can walk across the Brooklyn Bridge. So I'm going to start in Manhattan. And when I click on Manhattan, it takes me down to, I use a parameter action to take me down to the zip code level. And I can see kind of the hotspots on where the pigeons are. So this looks like here in the middle, it's probably, so this here is probably Central Park if I had to guess. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that because that's always a good area to stay. But what's super interesting here is if I zoom out, there's actually no pigeon sightings in Central Park. Does that sound kind of impossible? Has anybody been to New York before and been to Central Park? There's definitely pigeons there. So I think what happens is they don't mark any of those locations. Probably, I wonder if it's because they don't want people to think that there's anything like that in Central Park. They do track squirrels, though, in Central Park. Okay, so now I've got my kind of hotel locations here, and I can click on a particular hotel. So maybe this one. Unfortunately, I don't have the hotel names. It didn't include those. It just has like ID numbers, so I left those out. But it looks like, okay, so here it looks like I've got 3 pigeons within that hotel, but it's really close to Central Park. So that's an option. All these other ones, like maybe down here on Broadway, maybe that's one. Now, I don't think any of those are particularly good options. So I'm going to click on pigeon. And that's going to take me back to the borough level. All right, maybe let's look at Lower Manhattan. And let's go down maybe probably to the east side. And now I've got this hotel here, okay, on West Street. That's right along the water, which would be really nice. I could go up here to the meatpacking district. The problem now is I'm really far away from kind of the lower part of Manhattan, which is where I want to go to do a bunch of touristy things. So let me try again. And this time I'll go over to Brooklyn. And okay, I want to stay near the Brooklyn Bridge, which if I believe I'm right, it's kind of right around here somewhere. So maybe I'll choose this one because it doesn't look like it has that many. Yeah, so here we go. So this looks good. So I've got the Marine Terminal here. That's the Battery Tunnel. The Brooklyn Bridge is right over here. Okay, so maybe I need to go back one postcode. Sorry about that. So let me go here, and I need to go, looks like maybe down this way. Oh, sorry, I've got myself lost now. 1 second. Let's maybe stay here. Let me reset the map. And there we go. Okay, so I've only got 1 hotel in this area, but there's no pigeons within 250 meters of it. Okay, so I'm going to make a note of that one, look up some different reviews, and there we go. But this is a really simple way to use parameter actions. And I use parameter actions combined with dynamic zone visibility to give me this 3-level drill down. Really, really interesting user experience. You can make it, I don't know, I find this much more interesting to use than like picking a borough number from, or a borough name from a drop down and then going to another sheet and picking a zip code from the drop down, right? So it's much more of an interactive experience here. So kind of a useless story, but I thought it might be useful to see an example of how I actually use parameter actions in real life. So what are the things you're going to walk away with today in this class? First off, you're going to learn how parameter actions enhance user activity. I think you've already seen an example of that here. We're going to have lots and lots of examples we go through with that today. If there's anything you walk away with today, this is the most important thing. You want to design user experiences that are a delight to use, right? You want to think about what can I do to make it a more natural experience for a user? When you think about designing that user experience, pull out your phone. How do you use your phone? Maybe that's a good way. It's all touch screen, right? You don't pick things from menus usually and that sort of thing. So think about that kind of experience. We're also going to look at how to do data analysis to do comparisons and exploration. So I just did an exploration exercise there, right? I started at a high level and drilled down. And I'll show you some more examples of how to do that. And then also how to guide your user to find the insights that are most important to them. And lastly, how to create more efficient dashboards. And in the chat, what do you think I mean by creating more efficient dashboards? Okay, I do give the answer away there, right? Reducing the number of sheets. But the idea there, I guess I should just keep talking because I gave you the answer. The idea there is how can I keep the user in a central place without having to navigate to other dashboards, right? So picture you have a landing page with a bunch of KPIs. Maybe you've developed a landing page like that before. And each of those KPIs then refers to another dashboard, right? The user then has to navigate over to a different place, lose their flow, and then when they need to get back, they need to figure out how to get back again. Well, if you can combine that all in one place, then you're going to make it a much better user experience. You are going to increase the number of sheets in the dashboard, but you're not going to be showing very many of them, right? So you can have tons of sheets in there, but it's only going to slow Tableau down if you're rendering tons of them. And who's this webinar for? So it's for anyone that wants to be great at Tableau. So do any of you on this webinar want to be great at Tableau? So give me a thumbs up if you do. Hopefully the answer is yes, otherwise you wouldn't be here. All right, very good. Donna, I know you do. All right, excellent. Gaurav, I like the thumbs up in front of your face too. That works really well. Excellent. Thanks, Jordan. Very good. All right, so everybody wants to become great at Tableau. That's excellent. And I'm going to give you the background you need to understand, configure, and use parameter actions. So this is an example here on the screen where we're looking at a pretty similar, this is slightly different data, or actually it is different data, but it's a very different user experience. So on the left-hand side, I have a really static visualization. Don't worry about, what's on the chart or anything like that. I've got a line highlighted, but that's really all the user can do. They can just look at it. They might be able to do some hovering and stuff, but there's no interactivity. Where on the right-hand side, I'm giving them a control with a parameter action to swap out the metric that they're looking at in the view. So they can look at posts or engagements or what's the next one? The last one, average engagement rate. And it allows them to explore the visualization to what's most important to them. Everything gets re-ranked. So there's lots of things going on here to build this dashboard, but it's a much better user experience for them. And there's nothing particularly wrong with static visualizations, but they can't quite give you the depth of analysis that parameter actions can. We've already seen a couple examples here of where parameter actions allow that interactivity and that more interesting user experience. So for example, this is a chart about the Tories and their goal to destroy the UK economy. And looks like they were pretty successful given the chart here, right? You see the blue shaded areas are when the Tories were in power. This is looking at unemployment rates. But what if I want to compare the unemployment rate across different years? So for example, I may want to use 1990 as my baseline and see how everything compares versus 1990, right? So I want to be able to click on a bar and have everything adjust in order to be able to compare to that year. So, for example, if I click the tallest bar, how is everything compared to that year? And I can do that with parameter actions. So by mastering parameter actions, you'll be able to kind of improve your Tableau expertise, make your dashboards more dynamic, interactive, impactful. And you can see how much better this is for the user, right? They can now ask an additional question to get a different answer, right? There's, again, nothing wrong with that static visualization. If I go back, there's nothing wrong with this, but you get so much more information by making it interactive for the user. And that's the power of parameter actions. Yes.
I just had a thought I wanted to jump in with, and that's around mobile use of Tableau or other tools. And I don't know how many of your stakeholders use Tableau on mobile, but this is a great use case. And Andy mentioned earlier, when we interact with stuff quite often, at least on our phone, we don't want to click on filters. We just want it to be, well, swiping and tapping. Like, it needs to be gestures. It needs to be just interacting with our fingers. And that's where this comes in so handy. If you are designing or planning to design mobile first, these parameter actions will be so good to get users to use stuff. And I'm thinking especially senior leaders who say, hey, I need some of this, like this stuff, some of these answers on a Sunday night before the week starts. They don't necessarily want to open up their laptop and do a bunch of stuff, filtering this like really complex, very businessy type dashboard, but maybe just interact on their phone, check a couple of key figures and be like, okay, sweet, I know everything's good to go for the week. I've got my head straight, everything is good to go. So thinking of these actions, not just for a more elegant user experience in the browser, but also on mobile.
Great, thank you, Eva. She likes doing that to give me a chance to take water and to actually breathe. So I appreciate that from her. Okay, so again, we're looking at this gives a significantly more dynamic user experience. Am I on mute? No? I'm okay? Okay, sorry, because I think I forgot to mute myself when you were talking. Right, so let me move on. I just got distracted there. Before I kick off, before we know and start working with parameter actions, we first need to understand what a parameter is, because it's impossible to build a parameter action without a parameter, right? So if you've done that before, please send me an example. I'd love to see how you use a parameter action without a parameter. That would be, I mean, you can create a parameter action that's an error. That's not a problem at all, but you have to have a parameter to build a parameter action. So I thought it's important first to understand, well, what is a parameter? And a parameter is just simply values that can be changed by the user that are interacting with the view, right? So the user clicks on something, it updates a value in the parameter. So you create a parameter. They're really dumb. Parameters don't do anything until you tell Tableau what to do with them. So it could be where it's a drop-down parameter. It could be where it's a parameter action, where they click on something, right? So there's different ways that you can populate those parameters. But they also give users control over the visualization, right? You might allow them to swap out the metric that they're using, or maybe the dimensions that they're using, or comparisons like I've looked at before. There's tons and tons of different ways that you can give users control of visualizations, but that's what parameters do. And then when you add on top of that parameter actions, you're now giving the user interactive features that allow them to control the parameter by interacting with the visualization and not with the parameter itself. So I'll give you an example here in a second of what I mean by that. But it also enables users to customize their experience, making it more responsive and more engaging, right? Users are much more likely to use a dashboard that is engaging versus one that is not. So here's an example. This is how you would traditionally build a parameter. On the right-hand side, you can see I have this parameter where you can pick a month. Nothing particularly complicated about this visualization. They're just picking a month, and allows them to move that reference line because they want to compare kind of the before, the left side versus the right side of that parameter. Perhaps they're trying to figure out, well, I see this spike. Was there a promotion run on that week? If so, what were the average sales before and what were the average sales after? But in order to use in order to move that reference line, you have to hover over one of the marks to find out which month it is. Very slow process in itself. And then you have to go to the right-hand side and pick the month from the parameter. In this example, there's lots and lots of months. So you have to scroll and scroll and scroll through that list. And it's just a really arduous process. Wouldn't it be much easier if the user can just click on the dot and then everything does it for them, right? They don't have to go hunting and pecking in that parameter. And that's what it looks like here. So now the reference line moves when the user chooses a date. So much faster. Let me go back again. So you see how slow this process is to move that reference line, right? Versus now, when they just click on something, it's instantaneous. It's much faster. It's a way better user experience. And this is what parameter actions allow you to do. I've given the user a much better experience. We can also allow users to control the dimension they want to display in the chart. So in this example, I'm using parameter actions to swap out the dimension that they see in the view, right? Again, this could be a traditional drop down where they pick the metric, but this just looks better, right? They look like buttons people are used to tapping on, and those sorts of things. So it's super easy. You just configure the parameter to update based on the option that they click on, right? But again, it's a very interesting user experience. They can you're used to on your phone tapping things and having them change. That's this experience that they're getting. That's the new experience that users expect. But imagine being able to guide users through a customized data journey, right? We want every click to bring out new insights that are tailored to their needs. So that's what the parameter, that's the parameter, that's the power that parameter actions unlock for you. So when you get really good at parameter actions, you can build visualizations like the one on the right-hand side. Again, nothing wrong with the one on the left-hand side, right? It tells its own story. It's comparing crop production in the Americas. But what I really want to be able to do is I want to be able to click on a mark and have my reference line move, click on a continent and have everything adjust to that continent, click on a measure and have everything update with that measure, right? But it's all just at the tap of a button. I don't have to go searching through menus. So it's a significantly more engaging user experience, right? What are some of the key features of parameter actions? Well, parameter actions, complex parameter actions in particular, they help us unlock those hidden insights. We looked at something there a minute ago. And the first step of that is advanced data exploration. And let's look at an example of what I mean by that. So we're looking at an example here of this could be a simple sales dashboard. And on the left-hand side, you have a list of your cities where you have sales. And on the right-hand side, you want to be able to compare cities that are similar to that city. So this is done by Lindsay Poulter, who was a former Tableau visionary. And it allows you, with parameter actions, to click on a city on the left-hand side. That gets highlighted on the right-hand side. And then on the upper right, you get to pick how many cities you want to compare to. So do you want to compare to 6 other cities, meaning 3 above and 3 below? Do you want to compare it to 4, 2 above and 2 below? Do you want to compare to 2, 1 above, 1 below? But you're giving the user the experience that they want. So if you're a sales manager, for example, you might want to click on your city and see what other cities how you are performing compared to similar cities. But again, a really useful experience. The user doesn't have to go find the city. They could just, look in the list, see where they rank, and then on the right-hand side, see how they compare to the other cities. Okay, there we go. So the next key feature is performance optimization. So we've looked at a couple examples of that already. And here's an example of that. So this is a really great example of how to use dynamic zone visibility effectively. This is done by Sam Parsons. And all of these are on Tableau Public. But I found this one super, super cool, right? This could easily be on a website, right? You click on the gear on the upper right, the little filter icon we're used to seeing, and it pops the filters out. Or you could expand or contract a chart, right? Any of those charts you could expand or contract. You could show or hide the subtitles like this is doing here, or the sub filters, right? It's a super, super awesome user experience. And all of this is done with parameters and parameter actions. But picture your user, if you created something like this and turned it over to your users, they might see something in one of these charts that they find interesting, like, well, what's going on in that chart, right? So this one, for example, this monthly sales. Right now, that chart on the upper left is just, whether or not you're above. But when you take that chart on the left and you break it and you open it up, it's now broken down into separate categories, right? So you could see overall I'm underperforming, but which categories is that are underperforming? So super, super interesting use case of dynamic zone visibility along with parameters. And then we have customizable user experiences. So we've looked at a couple of ideas there, but we want to be able to tailor the visualizations for our specific audience. Now, to do that, you need to understand, first off, what is your audience looking for? Don't ever create a dashboard, throw it over the fence, and hope that it gets used, because it won't if you do that. You need to make sure you understand what are the important metrics for the user. When you understand what that important metric is, you need to ask them, well, what do you need to do if there's a problem with that, right? What other sub-metrics are important? And that you have to keep iterating back and forth with your stakeholders on that. So give a sketch, show them what that looks like, right? And kind of get their idea for if it's meeting their expectations. So, and as far as the customizable user experience, so this is a great example of a landing page. So, you might have this main landing page that has these 9 KPIs on it, and you click on one of the links next to it, and it opens up a smaller dashboard underneath of that. Now, these are really simple visualizations underneath, but they could be much more complex than that, right? But when you click on the donut chart there, for example, it now gives us a % of total chart over time, right? So you're kind of giving this user experience to allow them to drill down into additional insights. Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to quickly jump in here because Andy mentioned something that I think is a really important point, and feel free to add a comment of what your experience has been. He said, if you just throw the dashboard out there hoping people will use it, they won't. What I found really, really helpful as a user myself, but then also as somebody who built dashboards for others, was watching how they used the dashboard you gave them, and sitting with them and seeing just how people interact with the information, but also with Tableau itself. It's eye-opening, because especially if they haven't had formal training or any kind of advanced training, people do silly things, right? And it's super interesting to watch that, because it gives you clues on how user-friendly is it, how intuitive is it. And I will say, Tableau dashboards, I mean, you have to be a super advanced designer like Alan to make it come anywhere close to something as intuitive as, for example, in my opinion, an iPhone, where our little daughter, like, she can swipe if we let her. A lot of stuff in these business dashboards isn't necessarily obvious. So I would highly recommend watching how your users use it to see what could you improve, and is it fit for purpose? And yeah, that's something I wanted to throw in there. And if you have any experience of what's worked for getting people to really use the work that you've produced for them, please feel free to share them.
Yeah, we can even, if they want to talk about it, we can even bring them off mute and they can tell us how they've designed a great user experience for somebody. Okay, thank you, Eva. And then after that, we want to be able to do efficient dashboard design. And we can do that by consolidating multiple views in dynamic content, with dynamic content. So we've seen a couple examples of that already. Particularly the last one is a great example of efficient dashboard design. So this is one I found, oh gosh, now I forget his name. Pratik Kumar, I believe, so he wanted to kind of give the Tableau Pulse experience inside of Tableau itself. And it's really, I thought this was totally fascinating. Yeah, so you go to your homepage, you click on the Pulse metric that is important to you. You can apply some filters if you want. That's done with a dynamic zone visibility. You click on the tile, and now it brings you to another view. But all of this is done in one dashboard, right? You're not having to navigate away to another screen or another tab. Everything is right there in front of you. And this is an exceptionally well done example of how to do design. And if you're not following him on Tableau Public, you should be. Yeah, and Eva's, yeah. Okay, so what are some of the advantages of parameter actions? So I'm just going to kind of recap what we've talked about here. So the first one is increasing user interactivity. So we want our users to be able to actively explore the data through their parameter interactions, so interacting with parameters. We're going to provide comparative analysis, trend exploration, and what-if scenarios. We're going to guide users through a narrative with those dynamic visualizations. We've seen several examples of that here. Consolidating multiple views into a single dashboard. And these can also be applied to many use cases and various scenarios across different industries. And I want now to take us through 4 different real-world use cases. I don't have dashboards to go with these, but I'm going to talk you through how you could use parameter actions in this scenario. So we're going to go through in each of these cases, parameter actions will empower the user to interact with the data to make it more meaningful and intuitive to them. By dynamically updating the dashboard based on what they click on, parameter actions will make it much easier to uncover the insights and support better decision-making, right? And when we build dashboards, ultimately, we want people to use them to make better decisions. Okay, so here's the question we're trying to answer here. We're looking at product performance in retail. How are my products performing overall and for their specific metrics, right? So different categories have different metrics. So we want to allow managers to click on different product categories or regions directly within the dashboard. Okay, you can probably picture that, right? We're just allowing a bit of click interactivity there. When they click on a specific category, the parameter action will update with that category value, and it will dynamically change the dashboard to focus on the sales trends, or perhaps the inventory levels, or maybe the customer feedback for that selected category, or maybe it's a dashboard that has all of those. And then they may see an issue with the inventory levels, and they want to be able to click on something in the inventory levels and find out, well, is it a particular warehouse that's a problem? How long has this been going on? How long have inventory levels been low? But this instant filtering or this interactivity enables the managers to quickly compare those different categories or region. It helps them spot trends, identify underperforming products, and make informed decisions about inventory adjustments. The second example is finance. So how many of you are in finance? Quick show of hands in finance. So finance is really coming over to Tableau now, but they're still struggling to get off their tables, right? Right? There's nothing wrong with tables. They're really useful if you need to look up specific values, but there's no reason you can't tie that in with a great dashboard. So here we're trying to understand how departments are performing against their expense targets. So very, very common scenario in finance. You want to understand, are they over or under their expense budget? So the finance teams can use parameter actions to allow the users to drill down into specific departments or specific time periods simply by clicking on those sections of the dashboard. So we have an overall dashboard that manages the expenses for the company as a whole. On there is a view that has the expenses by department compared to their particular goal. It then has a trend over time of expenses. Are expenses increasing or decreasing? What are the expectations? Maybe you're comparing it to the goal over those same months, or maybe you're comparing it to the average overall. But you want to be able to either click on a department name, and if you do that, it could trigger a parameter action that updates the view to show the detailed expense report and budgets for that department. So Enrique, I saw you shaking your head that you're in finance. So we've got this overall KPI dashboard. You see a particular department that is spending more than they should be. You want to click on that department, and there's nothing wrong with it bringing up a table that shows you where the problems are, right? And then you can take action from there. So a very common thing for people to do is to try to just rebuild something somebody has in Excel in Tableau, right? How many of you have been asked to rebuild something that somebody has in Excel in Tableau? Probably everybody has at some point or other, right? Now, if they're insistent on having it in Excel, what I usually say to them is, well, why don't you just keep it in Excel? There's no sense in me building it in Tableau for you. Oh, I raised my own hand, didn't I? There's no sense in me building it in. Sorry, I'm distracted by my own hand being up now. There's no sense in me building it in Tableau for you to just export it back to Excel, right? So you need to understand, well, what are the decisions you make from this spreadsheet? And let's take it from there, right? Try to get them to not focus on Excel. You want to focus on the questions they're trying to answer. And then perhaps, they might start off and say, you know what, the thing we look at first is we build these charts in Excel that compare the different departments. And then we also look at the trends. Great. Okay, that gives me a good starting point for a KPI dashboard, right? But then you say, okay, well, if you see a department that is over or under budget, what do you do? And you just keep asking them these questions, and that's how you then design that dashboard for them. The beauty of that is that it then allows them to only need to take action on things that require it. So in an Excel spreadsheet, you have to go look at the whole thing and sort of figure out where you need to take action. But if you give them a nice intuitive interface, they can then investigate their overspending or the budget issues without having to navigate away from the dashboard. And this is going to allow them to respond quicker to any issues and to more effectively manage their budgets. And now let's switch over to healthcare, right? So in healthcare, we might want to understand, do patient outcomes vary by treatment plan and demographic? Well, in the UK, the answer is yes. I don't even really need to do anything more to have that. But the idea here is we want to allow clinicians, I have a really hard time saying that word. We want to allow clinicians to use parameter actions to select different treatment plans or patient demographics directly on the dashboard, okay? So I showed you the one visualization that had the regions across the top and the metrics down the side. Could be something like that, right? They pick a treatment plan, they pick a demographic, and the chart updates. When that selection is made, it updates. Perhaps it takes them to another dashboard, or it allows them to compare outcomes across those selections. So across the top, I might have different treatment plans. Up down the side, I might have metrics such as recovery rates, readmission rates, patient satisfaction scores. So when they click on the combinations of those things, they're able to ask and answer the questions that are important to them. This ability to dynamically compare different patient groups and treatment plans will help them quickly identify the most effective treatment plans, which will contribute to improved patient care and more personalized healthcare strategies, which is great for everyone. And lastly, let's look at fleet management, right, in logistics. So here we want to answer the question, how are different vehicles, routes, and drivers performing? Okay, you might have a driver that's sleeping on the job, they're always late, and you don't really have, nobody's actually caught them sleeping, but you want to understand what's going on. So the fleet managers might be able to click on different vehicle types. So again, picture this as a KPI dashboard where they have some KPIs on there for vehicle, that are metrics that are important for vehicle types, other ones for routes, other ones for drivers. They can maybe click on that particular metric, and we want to allow them to click on maybe different vehicle types, routes, driver names to trigger a parameter action. And it's going to update the dashboard with detailed metrics like fuel consumption, maintenance schedules, are the drivers on time? What are their on-time delivery rates for the selections that they make? And this is going to allow the fleet managers to quickly compare performance across different segments, identify underperforming vehicles or routes, and to take corrective action to enforce the overall fleet efficiency, and possibly to address any drivers that are consistently late, or they're not delivering their entire product, perhaps something like that. So with that, I'm going to dive into my 7-step framework for getting parameter actions to work for you every single time. And I guess this is why you're here. But quickly, did that help you understand give you a bit of context as far as what is important about parameter actions and how you would use them, right? So just give me a thumbs up in the chat. And I will give me a second to take a breath as well. Okay. Yeah, great. Yeah, David, thanks for sharing that link. All right, let's see. Which Tableau? Okay, I'm going to skip some of the how-to questions. Okay, so only David raised his thumbs. So I guess he's the only one that, okay, here we go. All right, now some people are jumping in. Thanks, David, for starting the trend there. But hopefully you found it useful to have that background. I think it's important that you understand the background and the power of parameter actions before you even start working with them, because they might not be right for you. Now, before I move on to my framework, I think it's important that you understand the difference between a parameter action and a set action. So in the chat, which action type do you find easier to use? Set action or parameter? So type either set or parameter in the chat. Parameters. parameters? Probably the answer I was going, well, it is the answer I would have expected because they're just, I wonder if anybody's going to say set. Personally, I find set actions a bit more intuitive, but okay, Pete's on my side. Thanks for the support, Pete. Oh, okay, he's only doing it just to be contrarian. So yeah, for the big difference between a parameter action and a set action is that parameters can only hold one value and sets can hold multiple values. So when you take action, if you only ever need one thing to update in the parameter or the set, just go with the parameter action if you understand them better. But if you need to be able to select multiple things to compare to, then you have to use a set action because a parameter can only hold one value. A set can hold more than one value. The other difference is parameter actions allow you to leverage the measure names field, which you can't use them. You can't use the measure names field anywhere else in Tableau. Oh, I see Maggie in the background. Okay, so let's quickly get on to my framework here then. So we're going to start with kind of and these should be relatively obvious steps, but I think it's important that I want to share my process because this works every single time that I use parameter actions. The first thing is you have to create a parameter, right? You can't do a parameter action before a parameter. So the example we're going to look at here is the one I showed you kind of at the very beginning, where it was a bar chart with the three little buttons where they can swap out the dimension that they're using. Okay, so they were able to switch between, I think, borough and zip code and whatever else the other thing was that was on there. Here we go, borough, zip code, and location type. So we have these, we set up our parameter. In this case, it's a string parameter, and we have three options. Because it's a parameter action, I actually don't need to list out any options because the parameter is going to be configured with what I click on. But I would initially start by building the parameter as if you're going to use it without a parameter action, right? Just a traditional parameter, because you want to make sure the parameter works before you start messing around with a parameter action. After you do that, you create a calculated field. In this example, I'm using a case statement. I just want to say, bring back the borough field or the postcode field or the location type. Notice that I had to, my parameter is a string data type. So in my calculation, I have to make sure that I turn the zip code into a string. Okay, I want to, I probably should do that by default, but let's, we can worry about that later. So we've created the calculated field. We've built the parameter. We've created the calculated field. And then you want to build your visualization and give it a test, right? So here you see I'm interacting with my parameter on the right-hand side. And the idea here for now is just to color code the option that I've chosen, right? So I'm just color coding my little pills or my pill shapes with, or my buttons with the parameter that I pick. Haven't done anything with parameter actions yet. I am just testing that my parameter works. So if you've ever been in a parameters class with me, you'll know that I do this every single time. So those of you that are in Next-Level Tableau already, you'll know what I mean there. Now, once you know that the parameter action is working, I've gone ahead and put this into the dashboard along with its chart. So I have one sheet that is my bar chart, another sheet that is for my selector for the dimension. So I'm going to put both of those into a dashboard. I'm going to now add my parameter action. I'm going to pick the source sheet that I want on the run action on. I want to do it when the user clicks on it. I would avoid using hover if you can, because that'll really confuse people. Plus, if you're on a phone, I've tried hover on a phone, but it doesn't work. Has anybody been able to figure out hovering on a phone? If you can, that'd be really useful. But I don't know of any phone where you don't have to touch to do it. But anyway, menu you might want to use, but then on the bottom left-hand side, you have to pick the parameter that you're wanting to work with and the field you're wanting to update it with. Now, in this example, I had to create 3 separate parameter actions based on the option that they pick on. So if they pick on a borough, then I wanted to run this parameter action called update borough. If they click on zip code, I wanted to run a separate parameter action that's for zip code. If I wanted to run on location type, I need to set up a third parameter action for location type. Now that's just this particular situation that requires 3 different parameter actions. But once you build one of them and you get it working, it's pretty easy to create the others. And then again, we need to do some testing. So you want to interact with your visualization. Make sure you check all of the possible options. Is it triggering properly? You know, when I click on one of the buttons, is it working? Is it updating the visualization in real time? What happens if I click on one of the bars on the left? Does that destroy everything, right? You want to make sure you test everything you possibly can in the dashboard. The worst thing you could do is build it, ship it, and then hope it's okay, right? Testing is one of the most important pieces when you're working with actions. Yes.
We had a question from Checkwas about the set of parameter whether string versus integer affects performance. I think I know the answer, but can you elaborate?
Yeah, integers are going to perform faster for sure. Computers like numbers better than they like letters. Ideally, if you're only going to have two conditions, use a Boolean. Those are the fastest ones. Checkfast, you may have heard me say in class before that computers eat zeros and ones for like cereal for breakfast. Like, you can put your Cheerios. So those are our zeros and our ones, and those are the most efficient thing you can use in really any software. Really is using Booleans if you can.
All right.
Okay. Let's see. There we go. Thank you for the question. All right, and then so we've built our parameter. We have tested it. We have added the parameter action. We've tested the parameter action, and now what you need to do is you need to make any adjustments. Right. This is probably when I would bring my stakeholders into it to make sure that it's behaving the way that they like. Right. And I think they appreciate. Well, I know that they appreciate when you bring stuff to them early and get their feedback early, because you're not, when you go to them and say, hey, this is kind of what I'm thinking about making the experience for you. Can you give it a try and let me know what you think of it? They then are in the mindset of, oh, this is being built. I have some influence on how this is being built, right? We're not talking about, they're not focusing on the numbers or anything like that. They're really focused on the functionality, and is that the functionality that they're looking for? So again, get your stakeholders involved in as many of these steps as possible. Okay, so you may need to update your parameter. You may need to update your calculated fields. You may need to change the action itself, but you want to ensure that everything works smoothly before you deliver it to your end users. All right. The worst thing, it's super embarrassing if you deliver something like this and it's got some big bug that you didn't test, right? Maybe if you don't want to go to your stakeholder, have a colleague test it for you. Get as much feedback as you can, particularly from people that aren't familiar with it, right? They're the ones that are going to be able to give you the best feedback. And from there, it's a matter of saving it. Yeah, don't forget to save. How many of you have had Tableau crash on you and you've lost all your work? Or you get the recovery mode and it's like 40 steps behind where you were, right? Very frustrating. So save along the way, right? I should have saved in every one of these steps probably. But yeah, save, share it up to Tableau Public, or, well, it could be, if this is an internal project, it might be Tableau Server, it could be Tableau Online or Tableau Cloud, and then share it directly with your users. So in this case, I've published it up. I'm giving it a test in the browser to make sure everything is working as expected, because if you've ever published anything up to the browser or up to Tableau Cloud, you know that things will move and not behave the way that you thought they would in desktop, or the way that they do in desktop. Has anybody run into that situation? Probably some of you have. So it's really important that you give it another test once you publish the dashboard. So kind of bringing that all back together, the first step is to create the parameter, and then we're going to create the calculated field that tells the parameter what to do. We're going to show the parameter and give it a test. Again, I'm still in my worksheet. I haven't gone to my dashboard yet. And then we're going to add the parameter action, test it, and then fine tune and optimize. Okay. So any questions on that framework? It should be pretty, if you just go step by step with these same steps every single time. I know I'm missing a step. There we go. The last one is obviously save it and share it. So if you take this 7-step process and follow it, you're going to get your parameter actions perfect almost every single time. So how many of you have a process that's similar to this? All right, so David has a formal framework now. Okay, very good. Okay, so step 3, show the parameter and test. So Virs, if you wouldn't mind coming off mute, I'd like to ask you a bit more about what your process was before you saw this today. So if you wouldn't mind taking yourself off mute.
Yeah, previously I never followed the parameter and test. I always do, like, after creating the calculation, I set up a relationship between the action and calculation, and then I jumped into the finally testing, unit testing, system testing. So
Okay.
today I learned this is the important step, because what happened if I stuck in somewhere after the when parameter action is not working, I have to start my check. I have to check my step from beginning itself. So if I start using the step third, so it will save my time once I got stuck in the later stage of time. So that is, I think, beneficial for me. That's a good step.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. It's going to help a lot with debugging, right? When you run into issues, because you're not going to have to go back any farther than that. Yep.
Right.
Very good. Thank you for sharing. Moving on from there, how many of you would like to learn how to do this? Before we get to that, we have a special gift for you. Eva, you want to take us through what we have here?
Yes, I would love to. We've put together this blueprint, which is essentially study guides or study plans that you can use, whether you are in Andy's Next-Level Tableau program or not yet, to improve your skills with some structure behind it. Because what we find is when people sign up to a program like this, or when they realize they really want to formalize making progress in their career on the technical side, it can be very easy to focus on just one thing. Okay, let's just build a bunch of dashboards day in, day out. But okay, what else is there? Or they might think, oh, I don't even know where to start. And then they don't take action, and it really sucks because they've maybe wasted money and wasted time. So we've put this together to give everyone an idea of how you can best use your time depending on how much time you have. First option is if you have 1 to 3 hours a week, and this we see as the minimum. If you have 1 hour a week, you can make progress. So we said 1 to 3 hours a week is hopefully something that everyone can find time for, and ideally within the context of your job. But if your boss isn't that way inclined and you have to make time in your own time, then that should be something that people can hopefully carve out next to family and other commitments. So let's say you've got 1 to 3 hours, you will spend some of that time on live classes, webinars, things like this, but also spending some time practicing, engaging in, when you're in Next-Level Tableau, there's a Slack community that comes with it. If you're not in the program yet, maybe it's interacting on Twitter, LinkedIn, or the forums with other people using Tableau. And then office hours is a feature of Next-Level Tableau where you get to ask any and all of your questions. And this could be, again, on those platforms, finding answers to your questions. Now, if we go to the next slide, we have 3 to 8 hours a week. That's a bit more of a commitment, but if you have that time, we're then increasing how much time you would spend in live classes or using recordings or things like YouTube videos from Andy, and then focusing time on your practice. So a bit more time spent building dashboards. In 1 to 2 hours, you can definitely do something like a Makeover Monday. If you work quickly and focus on just one element, you could do 2 Makeover Mondays, or one Makeover Monday challenge and something else, and just power through and apply the skills that you've learned. You spend a bit more time engaged with the community, and if you scroll to the next page, we have also added, in addition to office hours, or let's say Q&A type work, project work and additional learning. Project work would be, again, more engagement with the community at a larger level, and building that Tableau public profile, building your portfolio so that you have better chances landing a job, or just have a way to showcase the skills and how they evolve over time. And then finally, additional learning. So this could be attending virtual or in-person user groups, Tableau user groups, great opportunity. But also when they have conferences or there's other things, there could be LinkedIn Live, there could be podcasts, just other sources of information that help you become more well-rounded when it comes to your technical skills and learning more around Tableau, technology, how these tools are used in organizations, anything that can help you become a better analyst and seeing the bigger picture. And finally, let's say you have 8 or more hours a week. This could be because you're a student and you are focusing a lot of time on this, or maybe you are in between jobs or working part-time and your heavy focus right now for the next weeks or months might be professional development, building those skills to give yourself a better chance to land the next job. So we are intensifying how much time you spend on each of these items. In Next-Level Tableau, that would look like attending all of the live classes or watching the recordings, depending on your time zone, spending more time practicing. And that would be a blend between doing some of the work in things like Next-Level Tableau, but also community projects, but also in your work, taking what you've learned and applying it in your job so you can get hands-on experience straight away and let it sink in and solidify. More engagement with the community, also then having more time that you spend on project work, additional learning, and an extra final point, spending some time on review and reflection. So taking a few minutes at the end of every week thinking, what have I learned this week? What has that given me? What have I realized? Have I connected with new people? Is there something that I'm suddenly really interested in? For example, maybe you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to focus on mobile, or I'm going to spend the next months really focusing on design skills and maybe learning how to become a better designer and those kind of things. So we want to give you these study plans so that you have, if you're not sure how to spend your time, you have an idea and you can follow it, or you can say, I'm going to test it out for a week or two and see what works for me, what doesn't work for me, and then make it your own. So with that in mind, we'd love feedback as well. Once you put them into practice, and I'm going to hit send, and they're going to come into the... Oh, okay. I'm just going to repost it. So they're in the chat. You can download the PDF, print it, or however you'd like to use these kind of things. And feel free to send us via Andy some feedback if you would like, positive, negative, whatever comes to mind once you've started using these. And if you have any questions, pop them in the chat and I will get to them while Andy continues.
All right, great. How many of you think something like that is useful for you? While this is geared heavily toward people that are in Next-Level Tableau, it's certainly applicable to areas outside of Next-Level Tableau as well. And I just want to say one more thing about the review and reflection that Eva mentioned at the end. It's easy for us to go week over week over week and think that we're learning and then not realize how much we're actually learning. So I would make sure that if you do that reflection, you're going to see the kind of progress you're making all week. It's going to reinforce the things you've learned, and it's going to give you the confidence that you are improving week over week. So here's how to put my entire framework into action. And I may call on a couple people here for some feedback, but there's going to be a workshop tomorrow, 4 p.m. So this is how you actually learn how to do the stuff that we did today. And to start off, when you sign up for the workshop, there's a bunch of bonuses I'm going to give you for free. The first one is a template of 60 ways to visualize time series data. So that's a $97 value. And I'm going to add on top of that the Tableau visual vocabulary, which now that you can Tableau is about to open up a marketplace for Tableau Public. I think I'm going to sell that for around $249. So you're going to get it for free. 30 dashboard templates that I've come up with that you can just swap out your data and get you 75, 80% of the way there. My KPI quick start guide. There's lots of different examples of KPIs in there and what they're useful for. And so that is a total value of $703 for those 4 items. Now, that's not everything that you get, because what I want to do is when you say yes, I want to give you 1 free month membership to Next-Level Tableau. So this is where the magic happens. And I've got a couple people on here, Liana, Donna, David, Chekvas. They're the only ones that have their camera on. They can probably talk about how they find the classes, but the Next-Level Tableau is made up of e-learning modules, but also live training classes. There's 3 live training classes per week with me. So you'll get, I think, actually 12 training classes in September. I don't think I have any weeks that I'm not doing classes in September, but minimum of 10 live training classes. So that's around a $1,250 value. You'll get another workshop. So you get this one plus the next one. for 100. So that would be $150 value. All of the on-demand modules, that does not include the recordings of all of the live sessions. So with number one there, the 10 live classes, you get access to the recordings for those 10, but you also get access to the recordings for the other 80 or so that we've done already this year. So you're getting instant access to all of that material. You're getting access to all of the workshops I've done previously, right? You're not going to have to pay for any of those. This is all included. You get to come to the weekly office hours. We cover lots of different things there. Sometimes it's a Q&A. Sometimes we have guest speakers, and you get access to all of the previous office hours as well. And you get access to our Slack community. This has been absolutely fantastic. And I think everybody that's on the call from Next Level Tableau is actively engaged in the community on Slack. You can get your questions answered there. We have basically like a help desk on there where everybody contributes to the solutions. We have community challenges in there. We have information about the recordings, any upcoming events, a job board, lots and lots of different ways for you to get engaged with the Next Level Tableau community. So that's a total value of $1,797, which brings us to if you add in those bonuses I mentioned on the previous slide, that is a $2,500 value. And you can have that $2,500 value for $150. So $150 for $2,500 sounds like a pretty good return for me. You have until 3:59 tomorrow to sign up because the workshop is at 4 p.m. UK time tomorrow. That's 11 a.m. Eastern, and I guess that's 9 p.m. in India. Do I have that right? 5 hours difference? I think that's right. So it'd be great to have you come along for a month. And then if you want to stick around, it turns into a subscription after that first month. And that's, I think, all that I have, right? So Liana, I saw you're enjoying the classes. Do you care to say anything about that?
Only that I recommend it, very highly recommend it. They are excellent. You have to practice, of course. You have to practice a lot, but you will learn, you will profit from them. After months, you will be able to design most of the things you want to show.
Great. Thank you, Liana. Another important thing. So there's some people in the program that have 10, 12 years of experience, and they come to beginner level classes, right? You would think, well, why are they coming to beginner level classes? Because they're still learning something. I don't think anybody's been through one of those classes where they haven't learned at least one thing. So I tell people kind of ignore the level of the class, the level that's posted. Come to whatever you can. So Eva talked about that in the study guide earlier. There's a beginner, intermediate, and advanced class each week, and then those rotate times. So this week that just passed, the beginner class was on Tuesday. So this coming week, the beginner will be on Wednesday, and then Thursday, and so on. So we cover everything from the very basics to the most advanced. So with that, I see Pete has a comment in there as well. Donna, David, do you care to chip in? You don't have to, but
I think it's a dynamic, immersive experience. Like you were talking about, you're able to adjust your dashboards. The experience you get is based, like Leanna said, on what you're willing to put in. You can go all in. You can spend a lot of time in the Slack channels, watching previous videos, attending the live classes in the office hours. Or if you don't have time for all of that, you can pick and choose according to your schedule. And I think everybody's been able to derive a lot of value from that. So you can get as much as you want from it, or if you just kind of want to just wade in instead of take the whole dive, you can do that too. If you have a very full schedule, you can still get a whole lot of value out of it.
Great. Thank you, David. All right.
Yeah, I was going to say, I agree with David. I think it allows, at least for me, a lot of flexibility. So I try to go through the class as much as I can. And then if I'm really just trying to isolate on a certain topic, it's broken out by topic. So again, I think it's as much as you put into it, you'll get out of it. And, I really enjoyed the classes. for quite
Right.
a while. So appreciate
Yeah,
you.
and thank you, Donna. And those were not paid promotions, by the way. So I don't have to give a disclaimer there. I just put them on the spot. That's all. But I think, one of the things you need to realize is that this is the only Tableau training program in the world that includes the e-learning, the recordings, and the live classes and the Slack community. You can't get it anywhere else in the world. This is the best training program you can possibly be a part of. So if you sign up for the workshop, it's $150 and you get that 1 free month membership to Next-Level Tableau. And if you want to stick around, it turns into a subscription after that. And again, you have until 3:59 tomorrow to get signed up. Make sure you go to www, put that in the front so that you can make sure you get the special discount. So www.nextleveltableau.com and get yourself signed up by 3:59 tomorrow. And hopefully I will see you in class. Thank you very much, everybody.